Well, that happened. Boston Celtics had 4 different places where they could have really blown this game open. Instead, they lose it. When they had it, they blew it. We're going to talk about it right now on the Lockdown Celtics podcast.
Yup. Beantown, be ever ready. Recognize the city of champs. Back to back, if I say it, it's stamped. Locked on number 19, the best one, the next one. Juice loose in your pool now for the next run. It's the C's, who else could it be? What they gon' say now? Screaming like JT, Karalis, recap the madness. Every game, every practice. Best daily pod, no cap like Brad Beckett. Clutch like Jrue to KP, tap in daily. Primetime dapping D White on the sideline. Raining Jays, how it started, raising banners, how we finished. Locked on Celtics pod, home of the winners.
Hey there, welcome back to the Lockdown Celtics podcast right here on the Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. I got you Monday through Friday, plus bonus podcasts on the weekends like this when they play on a Friday or a Saturday. So make sure you're subscribed wherever you get your podcasts. Watch the show on YouTube. Get into that comment section. Let me know what you're thinking. If you're new, I'm John Karalis. I have been covering the Boston Celtics for about 20 years now and doing it now as a beat writer for Boston Sports Journal, so you can read all of my stuff there. Today, we're talking about the Boston Celtics just blowing it, just flat out biffed it. 119-115 overtime loss to the Atlanta Hawks. We'll get to the individual stuff later. Let's just run through it. It's a bonus podcast, so I don't want to go too long, overboard, whatever, because we've got a whole week of shows and much more coming up later on as we dive deeper into this. So, number one, I get it. People are going to be upset. I'm not stopping anybody. Like this is one to be upset about. Not in the same way as the Toronto game, I don't think. That's not how I'm looking at it. Because they tried. They had effort for, a good chunk of this game. They tried down the stretch. It wasn't like a lack of effort. It was a lack of execution. It was kind of like stupidity. It was, I don't understand why they did certain things. And look, there's plenty to be upset about. So I get it. I 100% understand. And they blew it. They flat out, they had it. So start with this. Forget how they got to this point. Forget the second quarter and the fourth quarter and the third. Let's just get to the end of the game. They were where they were. It was the Celtics. It was tied. It was 100-100. The Celtics did exactly what they were supposed to do in that situation. They used the timeout with 33 seconds to go. They used the timeout to get a 2-for-1. That's a situation where you want to go for the 2-for-1. You want to maximize your possessions. It's a tie ball game. You want to get a shot up. You don't know if you're going to make or miss. So Atlanta's going to get another possession. They're guaranteed, unless you get an offensive rebound, to get another possession. And even in that situation, they'll foul. So they're going to have opportunities to score. You have to prepare yourself for, if we miss and they score, do we have enough time to get another shot off and a chance to tie or win or whatever? And they did that. They executed a perfect 2-for-1. They got the Jaylen Brown jump shot with about 28 seconds to go, and they were up 2. So at that point, just get a stop. And they did. They got a turnover, and it looked like it was in the bag. They had executed it exactly the way they wanted it to. Best case scenario, Trae Young gets a technical foul. They're up 3. Beautiful. Thank you for the gift, Trae Young. This is amazing. You've been giving us gifts all game long. And now here you are. He had 5-6 turnovers. And here we are. Another perfect gift from Trae Young. Technical foul. Celtics up 3. They inbound the ball. Jayson Tatum finds Jrue Holiday underneath the basket. 17 seconds or so, 16 seconds left. At that point, I'm looking at it and I'm saying, just take the layup. But I look back on the play and I say, all right, his momentum was going away from the basket. DeAndre Hunter's momentum was going towards the basket. Maybe that would have been a challenged layup. I think if Holiday had set himself up to be going towards the basket, might have been easier, but whatever. So if you want to look at it and dispute that he could have taken the layup, because that was my initial reaction, I'll listen to that. So my first reaction was take the layup. Okay, iffy. Second reaction is just hold the ball and get fouled, right? Just dribble yourself into a position there, like don't dribble yourself into a corner, dribble yourself away away from everybody, and just get fouled. They're going to have to foul you. It's a 3-point game. They can try to to lock you up, but you're going to have to get fouled. They need the possession. They're not going to play the jump ball thing. And even if they do get the jump ball, you're up 3 and you have time. So regardless, he makes the pass to Jaylen Brown. It was out of bounds. If you're going to make the pass, you got to make that pass. Put it in his chest. And I will say, I don't want to let Jaylen off the hook. He could have caught that pass. He probably could have, I think, caught that pass. But that was 99% on Jrue Holiday. Okay. Turnover. Up 3, you play the foul game. They foul. The Celtics foul. They get 2 free throws from Trae Young. It's 103-102. They foul Jayson Tatum. Makes the first one, up 2, misses the second one. So now they're still up 2. They're not up 3. Holiday, again, what are you doing? He fouls, and he said after the game he was not intentional. But how was that not intentional? As soon as Holiday comes over half court, he's grabbing his arm. Holiday's grabbing Trae's arm with both hands. That very clearly looked intentional. So another mistake from a generally reliable guy in Jrue Holiday. So Trae Young makes the 2 free throws, and it's a tie ball game. And then execution at the end, not great. They get a Tatum turnaround, and it goes into overtime. Overtime, they had their chances, but shout out to Derrick White, who hit a couple of 3-pointers. It looked like the Celtics had their chances, right? It was kind of a back and forth. Daniels gets a layup. Derrick White hits a 3. Trae Young hits a 3. Jaylen Brown hits a 3. Okongwu scores. Tatum gets a layup. It's back and forth, and then just the Celtics just couldn't get the stop that they needed, and they couldn't get the scores that they needed, and they lose. So just boneheaded execution down the stretch. They had the game won. All Holiday had to do was get fouled and make a free throw. All they had to do was somehow not do what they did, which sucks because Holiday forced the turnover. Holiday was not bad in this game. He had actually hit a few shots. Like this was going to be a good Jrue Holiday game for the most part. He had 2 of 5 from 3, 6 rebounds, and assist. He had a steal, a block. He had done enough, and like I said, forced that late turnover with 20 seconds or so to go. He was big defensively when the Celtics were making their little run there in the fourth quarter. So it's a shame. And Derrick White, to his credit after the game, I mean, what else is he going to say? But when he was asked about it, he said, I trust Jrue 100% in those situations. And of course you do. Of course you do. But complete and utter brain fart there. But it wasn't just there that the Celtics blew it. We can work our way backwards. Fourth quarter, Joe Mazzulla talked about the fourth quarter where they had it 85 to 75. And the Celtics, the Hawks take a timeout 85-75. And next thing you know, it's 87, 80, 85, 86. Actually, no, they tied it up. So they turn around and after the timeout, the Celtics give up this huge run. That's an opportunity there to put the game away, and they don't get the stops. They don't execute. In the final 3 minutes of the game, it was Luke Cornett had a putback at about 3.5 minutes to go. They don't score another basket until Jaylen's turnaround jumper on that 2-for-1. The 2 missed shots apiece for Jaylen and Jayson in that situation. All they got was a couple of Derrick White free throws. You got to execute in those moments. Jaylen Brown in the fourth quarter was 3 for 12, 3 for 11 in that fourth quarter. Jayson Tatum got to the line a couple of times, but he was 0 for 3 from the field. So Boston Stars didn't step up. They had good raw numbers, right? 24 points, 11 rebounds, 8 assists for Jaylen, 23, 8, and 7 for Tatum. Percentages were not great. 33% for both of them, 2 of 9 for 3 from both of them. 3 of 12 down the stretch in the fourth quarter for Jaylen, 0 of 3 for Jayson Tatum in the fourth. That's not good enough, man. You depend on these guys. And I don't know what's going on with Jaylen Brown, but something's up with Jaylen Brown. I don't know what it is. Can't put my finger on it. He's not himself. He's not playing the same way. He played okay for stretches, but then he was not okay for stretches in this one. He had that absolute stinker in Toronto. He was better against Orlando, but he's been as inconsistent as anybody, and something is up. He is playing. Look, when you cover a team for as long as I have, what you're always looking for is the baseline, right? You watch all of these guys over and over and over again, and you think, if you walked into the arena early enough, you just see me sitting there watching guys warm up, watching guys go through their routines. How do they interact with their coaches? How do they interact in the locker room? What do they like with everybody? And you get to see consistently, okay, every day that this is you get a sense of who these guys are. You don't know them. Like, I'm not going to sit there and say I know anybody personally, but you have conversations, and you observe everything. And so with Jaylen, I've seen this Jaylen before. This is the Jaylen that's been distracted, and it was years ago, but this is the Jaylen that has been, something's on his mind. Something is up. I said this in yesterday's podcast. I think something is up with Jaylen Brown. I don't know what it is, but that's all I can say. I could be wrong, but just from what I've seen, something is either distracting him or he doesn't like something that's happened. I don't know what it is. So I'm not going to speculate as to what it might be, but I know from what I've seen, I know from who he is, this is not the Jaylen Brown that won finals MVP. This is not the Jaylen Brown that had that run. That's all I can say. That fourth quarter was not good. Let's go back to the second quarter. Actually, let's start from the beginning. First quarter, I thought they were great, and I thought, here we go. The Celtics are back. This is exactly what we want them to be. First quarter was wonderful. They won it by 12. They didn't shoot great, but they put up 30 shots because they turned the Hawks over 6 times for 9 points. They had 5 offensive rebounds. They had 7 second chance points. They were doing a lot of they had 15 fast break points in the first quarter alone. It was like, this was perfect. This is exactly what you want the Celtics to be. Minus, like, not exactly. So let me rephrase that, because it's not exactly what you want the Celtics. You want them to shoot better, but it's almost exactly what you want the Celtics to be. I'll correct myself there. And then in the beginning of the second quarter, they were right there. It was the same thing. They got turnovers, and they had this like goofy 3-on-1, which it should have been a very easy, great finish. Payton Pritchard. It was up ahead to Jayson Tatum, back to Pritchard, up to Sam Hauser. Hauser throws an alley-oop to Jayson Tatum, which is like he thought he was throwing it to Robert Williams or prime Vince Carter or something. Off of Tatum's fingertips, turnover. Like, okay, that wasn't good. Then they immediately get another turnover. And you're like, okay, immediate redemption. This is perfect. Just complete this play and you're fine. And they botch that one. And you're like, okay, this is going to be a problem. You could just tell. And then the energy started to shift in the wrong direction. They started to, I think, I don't know, get down or get deflated, but they started playing a little lazy. And everything started to cascade. And last season, that kind of thing might have lasted for an 11-2 run or something. The Celtics never really had a ton of full-on collapse. Like, oh God, the whole quarter is a mess. But this one was a mess. They scored 15 points in the second quarter. But if they had just completed those two fast breaks, could have been, now I don't know how it would have gone, because if you completed the first one, maybe the second one doesn't happen. But let's just say you get a couple of fast breaks there and it goes up to 16. The dynamic of this game changes. And maybe you're up 20. Maybe you start to run away with it. Maybe you don't get down on yourself. Or maybe they just say, oh, we got it and we're fine. And they get cool and Atlanta still comes back. But at that point, the poor execution becomes a problem. So the second, I said there were 4 chances that they had to put this game away. Second quarter, beginning of the second quarter, I think, is the first one. End of the third quarter, they had it. They had an 8-point lead or 10-point lead, and then flittered that away. End of the quarter, Trae Young banks in a three-pointer, and it's a 5-point game. You're like, right, of course that mess of a shot goes in. So that happens. Okay, that was opportunity number 2. Because if you close that quarter strong, instead of going to the fourth quarter up 5, you go into the fourth quarter up maybe 10. Okay, fourth quarter, it was 85-75. That's an opportunity. The Hawks call a timeout. Come back out there and impose your will. Make it 90-75. Do something, get some stops. Nope. You let them tie it up. That's point number 3 that they missed. And then you get to that thing that I mentioned before, that end of game where Holiday turns the ball over and then he intentionally fouls Trae Young. That was, they had that game won. That game was over. Up 3 with the ball, 20 seconds left. That is it. That is about a 99% win probability, and they biffed it. So I don't know what to make of these guys right now. I really don't. I still stand by my long-term view, and important to note, they didn't have Al Horford. They didn't have Kristaps Porzingis. Is that a miscue on the Celtics' part? Is that something that they should have done? Should they have played one and rested the other against Orlando? Or should they have pushed? I know the answer to that. They should not have pushed anybody to play in this game by doing that. Should they have played more Luke Cornett into the overtime? Nemish Queta was not good in the overtime. Another missed opportunity, but this one they were down 2. They get 2 misses. Atlanta misses 2 free throws. Queta fights for position, gets in, and the ball kind of bounces up off his hands. You got to get that rebound. I'm sorry. You got to get that rebound. And he doesn't. Onyeka Okongwu does. And then he hits 2 free throws, and that's it. So a little bit of bad luck on that bounce, but another play where it's like, oh, you got to make that play. Sorry, it's unfair, but you are in that position. You are in there. You're specifically in there to rebound. And you don't do it? That's terrible. So I think the effort was good. Effort was great in the first quarter. I think that after that third quarter, midway through the third quarter, when they started to play with a little bit more pace, it was like halfway through the third, you're like, what is wrong with these guys? Why do they suddenly not have it? And then I made the joke. It's like, I don't think they flipped the switch, but they turned up the dimmer a little bit and they played with pace. They were running, they were defending, and you're like, okay, here we go. And it felt like big effort in the first quarter, lull, big effort in the third and fourth quarter, and run away with it. But they can't finish. Fourth quarter, clutch performance, clutch time. They are one of the worst teams in the NBA. And these guys got to figure it out. They have to figure it out, because in a playoff situation, that's a place where you have to trust these guys to make these plays. I understand malaise. I understand the January doldrums. Trust me, we all are aware of how monotonous it gets sometimes. But the fourth quarter, your championship team, that's the one place where it's like, okay, we can screw around for 3 quarters, and in the fourth, if it's close, we're going to win it because we're a championship team and we know how to execute. We just know our plays. We know where our bread is buttered, and we know this is option 1, this is option 2, this is option 3. But the Celtics don't want to do the options. It's one of my biggest problems right now. They don't want to run through options. Payton Pritchard was great. Payton Pritchard was the one player where I'm like, this guy, like I even tweeted out, like, this guy is not going to let the Celtics lose. And he didn't let the Celtics lose. They just went off and lost without him. He was great in the fourth quarter. He was great. Like, they should have just fed him more. Just feed Pritchard. He was the one that was hitting. Set him up for some shots. Feed the hot hand. But no, they have to go ISO. They have to try to do things themselves. And I'm just, if the Celtics don't get back to unselfish, trust everybody, and make the right play stuff, then this is going to be a lost season. And I don't think that's where they're going to go. I still trust in these guys to figure it out. It's still January, and they know what to do. They know what it takes. They know what worked last year. And if anything, I hope this stretch tells them, hey, boys, you're trying to do things differently. Whatever it is, a little more ISO, whatever you're trying to do, it's not working. Get back to what worked last year. And I know it's a different year, but what I mean by that is making the right reads, making the right plays, trusting your teammates. I don't know how many times they have to go through and lose when they don't trust their teammates, but it's that was definitely a part of it. Kind of infuriating, this loss, kind of mind-boggling, and like, it's at the same time you're like, how many times are you going to find yourself in a situation like that where you completely choke? And they choked. There's no other way around it. So again, I don't think it's a long term. I don't take this as a long term. Oh my God, this tells me, oh my God, they're not going to do it. But in the short term, come on, guys, come on. And at home, on top of it, at home again. What is it? All right, so they go out. They got a Monday afternoon, early evening, 5:00 Eastern start against Golden State, part of the MLK Day slate for the NBA. And then a back-to-back on Wednesday, Thursday. Then what's that? A Saturday game in Dallas. So I'll be here all week. I'll give you another podcast, bonus podcast on Saturday after Dallas. Make sure you're subscribed wherever you get your podcasts. Watch the show on YouTube. Get into that comment section. Voice your concerns. Voice your displeasure. Tell me what you think about what I'm saying. Am I right? Am I wrong? Do you agree? Disagree? And then I would love it if you shared the podcast and told everybody that they should be listening to and watching the Locked On Celtics podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.